Okay, so now we'll start slideshow. All right, so welcome to our cross-country forum. It's very informal. Anybody who has a question, pop right up. Don't be bashful, because there's a lot of mysteries around this, and also a lot of misinformation. So we'll go on with this, and if you want a stop, just say so. So can you all see my screen?
No.
Just see you.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you need to share. Push the share button, I think.
Well,
I don't.
probably did.
Well, that's weird. I don't get a share button when I go to the tippy top.
Huh. Hold on. We'll get it going.
Yeah, I got it. Should work.
Okay. And share. There we go. And share. And share.
Voila.
There,
Okay, we got it.
got it as well.
Okay, everybody see that?
Yeah,
Yep.
there you go.
Okay. Everybody still see it?
Yes.
Okay, so here we go. So why cross country? Why not? Eventually, you get a little bored just hanging around within a mile of the airport, and you want to stretch your legs and make it exciting. You need to get yourself puckered every now and then. Anyhow, oh, come on. Sorry about this. My computer is being very pesky. I had its innards replaced. Stick with me here. Okay, so we did a little survey a few years back to find out why people didn't fly cross country, what makes people want to fly cross country. So here's the results. So not a highly scientific survey, but there it is. So a 4 means that people agree very strongly, and a 2 means they disagree a little bit. So lacking knowledge, people who just wanted to get away from the nest were very worried about lack of knowledge. Silver seekers, not so much. Some people want to be polite and not monopolize the equipment, but the whole reason it's there is to use it for cross country. And many people worried about unknown fields, what might happen. Some people said they didn't have time. Some people were worried about damage. And some people worried about being able to take it apart. So basically, we're trying to supply the knowledge and some of the training that helps reduce the anxiety of doing this. I found a way to stuff the PAVE model into this. So here it is. The Soaring Safety Foundation and FAA likes this checklist. Preparation. This is the most important thing of this whole presentation. Don't skip on the preparation. So, for the pilot, bronze badge, retrieve crew arranged. You can read as well as I can. One of the things that gets skipped on is in-flight nutrition. There are lots of things you can take along to feed yourself in flight that really get messy and nasty. Some years back, one of our club members, who's a brilliant Georgia Tech engineer, wanted the 134 for a 5-hour flight in late July. He put his nutrition in the side pocket early, and the plane sat out in the sun. It was one of those giant Hershey bars. Don't do that. Don't do that. I find Cliff bars are durable and they work just fine and they supply what you need. The granola bars, you open them in flight and you got granola all over the cockpit. Some of the other things like power bars is like saltwater taffy and hard to eat. But don't neglect your brain runs on glucose. And at the end of one of these flights, you need your brain. So make sure people know where you're going and that you've mastered your nav system. Because, the day of with cumulus popping at 6,000 feet is not the day to say, hey, Hartley, how does this work? It happens. So aircraft and equipment. Okay, glider comfortable. Scott will have a word or two about comfort. Relief systems, everything from a simple 1 gallon Ziploc bag with some absorbent material into it to elaborate off-board piping systems, but just make sure that you got something that works that you practiced with. So how do you practice with it? Well, when I first learned about that, I learned about the Ziploc bag, and my wife found me laying in the bathtub with my parachute on and a Ziploc bag. And she said, what is going on? I said, I'm practicing. But make sure it all works, Trailer, very important. I have been called upon to retrieve a lot of people from landouts, and believe me, I have seen some terrible trailer rigs that were just barely or not really roadworthy. You need a roadworthy trailer. And I won't go into detail on that, but it's very important. Tow vehicle, keys in the car. There's lots of stories about person tying their car keys to a handkerchief and tossing them out the little side window so the crew could get them. But they didn't end up on the field. Money for gas, don't depend on your friends to have the money to get gas to go retrieve you. So the basic question is down here in red. Ask yourself what could go wrong, fix it in advance. Environment, this is what you want. Scott will go into this more. So here's how you find out what the weather is going to be. We like SkySight and windy. Weather.gov is good. And unfortunately, one of the best weather things of all was this ruck soundings, but the government decided that they weren't supporting that anymore, so it's gone. So you don't have to figure out how to read the skew chart because you can't get one. All right, road of flight. This is really important. You've got to know where you're going to go and what you're going through along the way. You can see swamps on the sectional, and swamps don't produce real good thermals. And if you should land out in a swamp, you might get eaten by an alligator. So, learn the terrain, learn the airspace, where you're going, and what's on either side of where you might have to deviate to. Then you look on Google Earth, because you might be flying over miles and miles of subdivisions, which isn't landable. Between Monroe and Macon, there's a large national or maybe a state park forest with absolutely no place to land for about 40 miles. You got to learn where you're going to go and where you shouldn't go. And then Fernando's real big on this. Drive the area, take a look at fields from the ground, because sometimes what you see from the air isn't quite so inviting when you see it on the ground. But this is good preparation. And I'll stop here and I will stop my share and Scott will bring in his. Scott, you're up.
Any questions so far, guys? All right, can everybody see that?
Yep.
Yep.
How's that look, guys? Can everybody see it all right?
Yeah.
Yes,
Good.
that looks good.
All right, very good. All righty, well, we'll get going with this. There's guys in this audience that have heard this for many years, and we have guys in this audience that probably have never heard it before. And the guys who haven't heard it before, you are my target audience.
Okay.
The cross-country basics for the silver distance pilot. Yeah, I'm focused on the guys that haven't ever left the nest to give you some confidence that you can do so safely if you have a game plan. But really, I think this has value for anybody who's on the lower rungs of the badge ladder, A, B, C, or bronze. I think this is all good info, and hopefully you'll find something to benefit here. You know, let's start with what would be the very first step to learn about cross-country flying. There's some awesome books out there. Reichman, Moffat, Eckley, and Kawa have written excellent books on cross-country flying. But when you close those books, now you ask, okay, great, now what? You know, so I think perhaps, and I say this humbly, I think the next step is something like this. But I think beyond this, there's no substitute for getting down to Cordele, a pitch for what Joe's been hawking now for weeks, and try to get down there to observe or maybe fly or do both and talk to guys over a beer. And you can learn a heck of a lot by getting hands-on and maybe getting a flight. So what I want to try to do is help you build a mindset for now, a personal framework or even a game plan on what you're going to do, okay? So my goal is to assist with that game plan. My personal experience with doing silver distance goes back to the mid-70s when I did it out in Arizona. There was no books, there was no plan, and believe me, there was no Zoom PowerPoint. So it was pretty ad hoc, but somehow I survived it. It was old Rental 126 with no electrical system. And I was armed with a paper sectional chart and 100-mile Arizona visibility, and somehow I made it. So hopefully you will be a little bit better armed than I was all those years ago. And I think all this helps. And of course, there's, like I said, a lot of good books out on the subject now. Okay, moving on. In the late 70s, the Air Force made me an offer. They said, we got some good news and bad news. The good news is they said, one of these is yours, and we'll even paint your name on the canopy rail. I said, oh, that's cool. And they said, the bad news is you got to go to Germany, the central region of NATO. And, oh, by the way, you're going to be outnumbered by MiGs 2 or 3 to 1. So that first tour there as a brand new guy of kind of forever changed how I looked at preparation. And it was beat into us sometimes very rudely, but beat into us nonetheless in our formative years, how critical preparation is for this kind of flying or soaring cross country. I think there's a lot of similarities between the two, frankly. Okay, so that's what I'm trying to impart with you guys is the preparation angle. And without further ado, let's hear one more take on preparation, and we'll get right into it. I can't imagine anything more prescient than this, you know. Can you only imagine long before the Civil War what his chance would be, his opportunity would be? He couldn't imagine it, but there it was, okay? And I think in this audience, there's a chance we could have future diamond pilots, contest racers, champions, record holders. Your chance may come too. Okay, so I think you need to look at it in that way. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, let's prepare and let's stack the deck. This is what we're going to do tonight. Develop a framework for organizing cross-country planning. Learn how to transition beyond the books using a practical thought process, a way to think about cross-country flying, a game plan, a mental model. Learn to use pacing and decision gates to optimize success. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. Appreciate that organization leads to greater situational awareness, and realize that an organized game plan, updated frequently, is the key, I think, to safety and success. Not locked into one plan, but updated frequently. So let's stack the deck. It really starts weeks or months earlier. We've talked about the books that are available, and there's many more. To take a club single cross country like Whiskey or EFX, you need to have the bronze badge complete. That's right out of our field and operating rules. Some silver legs are recommended for silver distance, but they're not required. So if you have a complete bronze badge, you can attempt silver distance in a single, okay? Some guys do all three silver legs on one flight: height, duration, and distance. And typically they finish up the duration after they've completed the aspects of the distance flight, okay, and height. You want to be familiar with your weapon of choice, whether it's EFX or Whiskey. You want to be comfortable flying it and rigging it, okay? I'm very comfortable rigging Whiskey, but frankly, I'm not so comfortable with EFX. And I know that EFX's trailer requires some body English. I'm amazed when I see guys like Joe Flores and Mitch. They know exactly where to wiggle and bend things to make that Comet trailer work for EFX. And I don't have that knowledge. Whiskey is more straightforward with the standard Cobra trailer, but it's those little things, the nuances of this. Familiar with the trailer and tow vehicle prep, full gas, keys in the ignition, et cetera. But little things, guys, like the tow ball, they're different for various trailers. So make sure that your tow vehicle and trailer are compatible at the tow ball end there, okay? And then lastly, stacking the deck, build your team early, because you are a team. You need an official observer. You need to know what badge qualifications they must hold, okay? You need a retrieve crew. You want to coordinate with your tow pilot and the OD, or whoever's acting as an OD if it's down in Cordele, okay? So just some things to keep in mind there.
Can I stop you a second?
Sure.
Go back to that.
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to make it clear, because I know we've got a lot of new folks out there that says, oh, damn, do I need a tow vehicle and all that? One of the purposes of camp is that there will be people there like me and Mitch and others who will have, experience and are accepting some responsibility for crew. So when you get down to familiar with the trailer, yes, it's familiar to be, you need to be familiar with the trailer and tow vehicle prep. But as long as the other part is done, if you get a retrieve co and you check crew and check all the boxes for the flight, the things that you need, make sure, the P bags and all that stuff. Somebody there at the camp will help you with that and make sure that you are completely prepared, and the retrieve is also prepared for you. And that's all I needed to add.
No,
I just don't want to scare people off thinking, well, shit, I don't have a tow vehicle. I can't go.
Yeah.
That's not the case.
Excellent point. We would ask that guys that want to go across country be proactive to ask these questions. But believe me, yes, there's old heads down there that can help out a lot. Okay, so don't be too intimidated by that, but just be proactive. In other words, to know that there's some nuances to all this. Okay, good point. Thanks, Joe. All right, prep continued. Important point is to understand your flight recorder. The whole process, A to Z, know how to load a flight declaration in it, all the way through post-flight analysis. And what I would recommend is whatever you're planning to use, practice with it on local flights. We only have a few weekends left, as Joe mentioned, but try to get as comfortable as you can with that so that when you get down there, that's not a stumbling block, okay? Understand your cockpit nav displays and controls. And I think on all of these, there's a few bread and butter modes that are most important. And I think at the top of that list on nav displays are active waypoint control, if you have such a thing on yours, that you can very quickly toggle between desired waypoints and get with it if you have the computer associated final glide information, okay? Third bullet, I'm safe. Hartley's alluded to this already. Rested, fed, hydrated, got a relief plan, and comfortable in the cockpit. Make sure that you are strapped in and you've got good lumbar support. EFX, I think, is a roomy cockpit, but I think a lot of guys will agree with me that the lumbar support in EFX is not good. And on a longer flight, that would be painful. The wallet comment, on my first record out to Lake City, Florida, I sat on my wallet and I had a butt bruise for almost a week. So don't sit on your wallet, guys. Either put it in your front pocket or in a shirt pocket or someplace, but don't have something back there that's going to hurt you en route. Decision gates. Understand these. You make multiple decisions on a fly day, whether you realize it or not. Do I drive to the field? Do I rig? Do I ground tow to the end of the runway? Do I take off? And independent of takeoff is, do I start the task? So I've pushed ahead to the next step on each one of these. And likewise, I have stopped the day at certain points due to weather or whatever reason. So independent decision gates, starting with going to the field and then finishing with starting on course, okay? Pacing, last item there, when to do of, never rush. The silver distance obviously is not that time consuming a flight, but when you start talking a 300K gold distance diamond goal, certainly 500, you want to get an early start. And how early is that in Cordial? If I can get it airborne by 11:30, I want to do that. 11:30 for the longer ones. Not necessary for the silver distance, but again, you don't want to be behind. So don't rush. Questions on this? Weather, Hartley's already talked about this a little bit. There's all sorts of commercial apps out there that are great. We have pros and cons to these, and SkySight, XC Skies, Windy is wonderful for winds and some other things. Long range wind forecasts are really good on that. So compare them. You know, I look to see what several of them are saying. Are they agreeing or are there discrepancies? You know, ask others what they think of the day. Desired day, I'd like Q. I'd like to not start on course on a blue day, but conditions may change, particularly for the longer tasks, and you may end up with blue conditions. So just food for thought there. A third bullet, watch for high broken overcast decks moving in. The sounding should tell you that, but obviously the forecast and just looking out to the west. For those of us who flew Sunday, this past Sunday, you can see how much weaker it was under a pretty thick cirrus deck. We still got Q, but they were much wimpier than what we would have had if we had blue above.
By the time I got home, it looked terrific.
Yeah.
And it cycled several times, but yeah. So watch the high stuff too, because it obviously is not going to help you. Minimum cloud base, I like 5,000 AGL as cross-country weather. That's around here, that's going to be 6,000 MSL, 5,500 or so MSL down there. But often, guys, at Cordial, I'll put a plug in for that right now. You could be well above these minimum cloud bases. You could see 6, you could see 7, you could see 8,000-foot cloud bases down there on the right days, right conditions. And that is just crazy. That is incredible. Along with it, much stronger lift. And I'll talk about that a little bit more later. Lastly, winds aloft, know them. Generally out of the northwest this time of year, when we get into the Bermuda High, they'll be fairly light, 10 to 15 knots at the most out of the northwest, maybe much lighter than that. But it's good to know what the winds are, and the Q may line up with them for streeting. All right, thermaling basics. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. you already know how to thermal. Okay. As we mentioned in our thermaling Zoom session a month or so ago, use only the strongest lift if possible. Be picky. You want to core quickly within 2 turns. You don't want to waste a lot of time noodling around trying to find the core. So try to core it quickly and bank steeply in the strongest part of the lift to shorten up your turn radius for the smallest possible turn circle. Shift your turn circle frequently towards the core. And about every 2 turns for me, I'm unhappy with it. I'm already starting to feel a strong side and a weak side, and I want to shift my circle towards the strong side by relaxing bank, sliding over, then reestablishing the bank, steeper bank. Okay, and the last bullet, higher average cross-country ground speeds are most influenced by fast climb rates, not interthermal speed. Sure, why is interthermal gliding is important. There's an interesting article I just read in the most recent Soaring magazine on that, how to increase speeds, and there were 4 points in the author's article. But I think overall, higher average speeds are most influenced by faster climb rates. Okay, any questions, guys, on this?
I have one. For a silver badge, you can take your time and speed is not really all that critical. But you build bad habits, and for the gold badge, the 300K, you will definitely need to get a wiggle on.
Yeah.
So, don't teach yourself bad habits. A couple of things that are not so obvious. You're cruising along, you've had a couple of half decent climbs, and then you're near the top of the lift band and you hit a really strong one. You are losing time if you take that. But if you do take it, you can put yourself in rhythm with the next really strong one. So it's one of those decisions. If you can core it quickly, you take it.
Very good. Very good. I'll have more to say on that subject here in a few slides down the road. Okay. And new guys, if you have any questions, please stop me. Please stop me.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
How far away from Cordeo would be considered a cross country? Like if I'm flying around there trying to do the duration, like, is there like how close to the airport do I have to stay?
Well, basically cross countries are when you're outside gliding distance from home would be the short answer, but that's not terribly helpful. But
accurate. I mean, if it's a 6,000 or 7,000 foot day, you can afford to get a little further away. You can go to the lake, maybe.
Yeah.
If it's a 3,000 or 4,000 foot day, you hang
stay closer.
Right.
Yeah. So as Scott said, the official definition for soaring is if you need one more thermal to get home.
Okay.
You're on a cross country.
Now,
for airplanes, the FAA has a definite distance to call it cross country, 25 nautical from home.
Because I looked at all my traces over the years, and one time down at Warm Springs, I got 16 miles away from Warm Springs in the Cirrus, and I hadn't really declared a cross country or anything, but it was like a booming day. It was 7,000 foot cloud bases and everything. So
yeah.
Okay.
So the answer, as in many things soaring wise, it depends
on the conditions.
Right. From 6,000 or 7,000 feet, you could have done that 15, 16 miles 3 times, maybe.
Yeah.
All righty.
All right. Sorry.
Hey, no sorries.
No sorries.
Good questions. Okay. Thermaling versus cruising. We've spent the last many months doing a lot of the former and really none of the latter in survival mode at Monroe. When we stop the thermal on a cross country, it's an algebra equation of how much time we spend thermaling and how much time we spend cruising, but I'm feeding zeros into my average ground speed. So stopping to thermal is a necessary evil on longer flights, if that makes sense. It's a different mindset when you're just in survival mode trying to fly around here in the wintertime when you love every zero sink bubble you can find. It's a very different mindset when you've got to push yourself down track. So think of it in those terms. Don't fall in love with lift. It's a tool in the toolbox. So let's talk about climb to cruise ratios that are typical for the Southeast US. And I think 30% climbing, 70% cruising is about the best you're going to do. Maybe some of the more experienced cross-country pilots in the latest generation 18-meter ships could probably beat that handily. But I'm a 30-70 guy and have been in the past. Look at the Uvalde numbers from the World Gliding Championships a few years back. 10% climbing, 90% cruising. That's just amazing to me. Of course, their conditions are pretty impressive out there. All right. And as you're thermaling, constantly assess the sky ahead during each circle and when leave when the lift weakens. Okay. So some thoughts there on thermaling versus cruising.
Yeah.
Questions on that one, guys? Hartley.
I would add, leave when the lift weakens, but better yet, leave when you can do better at the next thermal.
Yes.
Because, you know, the lift might weaken, it might be the last. I had that experience coming back to Cordeal. I left because the last thermal died and it was still 20 miles to go.
Right.
So
Good point.
if you could do better, go.
Very good. All right. Some more on thermaling versus cruising. Try to stay, this is technique now, but this is my conservative technique. Try to stay in the top third of the lift band, and we'll have a profile view of what I'm talking about there. But if cloud bases are at 6,000 to 6,000 feet AGL, then I would like to work between 4,000 and 6,000 feet AGL, the top third of that lift band. And as Hartley alluded to, something that I've found that works quite well is try a ratio of work a thermal and skip the next two. And I will preface that by saying if these were all of equal strength, okay, if they're all pretty much the same, and you'll find a lot that are in that category. We'll talk about exceptions, but assuming the thermals were all of equal strength, theoretically, try to work one, skip two, because that pushes you down track, and you should still be able to stay in the top 1/3 of the lift band by doing that. Again, I'll have a schematic of that in a second. But do stop for particularly strong thermals. They are out there. We've all seen them where we've had your typical 3 to 5 knot Cordeal climbs, and all of a sudden you have a 7 knotter. You know, where did that come from? But if you find something like that, take it. Take it as high as you can and then restart. Okay, start over. You want to keep pushing yourself down track. Again, as Hartley mentioned, it's not so critical on a silver distance flight, but when you're flying 3 or certainly 500K, you've got to be relentless. You've got to keep pushing yourself. And I would say to the point that if I'm doing a flat triangle or a 3 turn point rule, I want to have ideal times at these various turn points. You know, at leaving Cordeal, if I'm going down to Adel, I want to be at Adel at 1:30. I want to be back up at Perry at 2:30, 3 o'clock, or something like that. And we'll talk about the task area in a minute. But the point is, keep pushing yourself down track. Lastly, the bottom there is from my 500K flight diamond distance down at Cordeal. My average glide distance was about 6 miles. Average ground speed was 50 miles an hour. Okay, that's a mix of 0 ground speed essentially for thermaling, and then the interthermal cruise. This was in Sierra Alpha, Ventus. And then my climb cruise ratio was very nominal, 30% climbing, 70% cruising. So yeah, that 50 miles an hour, by the way, is a very average 500K ground speed in Georgia. That's just about right on there. Okay. So questions on that? You can do the math. If you think about it, basically it's a 300-mile course, and you're only gliding 6 miles. That's a lot of climbs. It's a long day in the saddle. Anyways, but it's all good. Anyways,
yeah, just to improve on that a little bit, your work a thermal skip the next two. You don't just bomb through the next two.
Oh, you're way ahead of me, Hartley.
Oh, okay.
You're stealing my slides.
All right. No, go ahead.
No,
Sorry.
no, absolutely you don't. And I'll point that out. But yes, you're not just bombing through them. Here we go. No, it's not there yet, but I'll get to that slide. Go ahead and tell them what you have.
Okay, well, you can improve your glide ratio considerably if you speed up in sink and slow up in lift, and within limits, of course. But just, there is a theory, a school of thought of just keeping the same speed no matter what, but it's losing favor with the top racers.
Yeah. And I'll have a diagram or a picture that I think will help with that this discussion item.
Right.
Good point. Good point. All right. Plan execution. Again, trying to come up with a game plan, nuts and bolts things you can do when you close the books. Okay. Use checklist, beginning at home packing, as opposed to, I'll just put everything in the garage and I know I'll take it then now, because you'll forget something that's in the fridge. So have a good at-home packing checklist. Adhere to pacing guidelines driven by desired takeoff time. Tell you what, if it's 300 or 500K, I'd really like to get airborne before noon if I can, if the Q are already popping. Not quite so critical for silver distance, but again, don't wait too long on your silver distance day. Get going as soon as the lift is good. And we'll talk about some of the advantages of Cordele weather versus Monroe in terms of an early takeoff time. I'll talk about that in a minute.
Yeah, and that's also, it's all part of the silver also depends on the duration. You got to be wary of how late it is. If you did, some people fall out at noon, they have a chance to restart, but you got to restart by probably 1.
Excellent point.
So
if you are also attempting the 5-hour duration, then that definitely factors into it. That you've got to try to plan for both, yeah, good points.
And the other point corollary with that is, and I've done this, I have personal experience more than once. You can dawdle around, start late, and run out a day at the end.
Oh, yeah.
One of my flights coming back to Cordele, if I had continued final glide, I would have landed in the middle of Lake Blackshear, but I didn't want to do that.
Excellent point. Third bullet, when cross-country go criteria is met, go. What on earth am I talking about here? I will point that out on future slides here, guys, that we're gonna talk about go criteria, and we're gonna make it pretty straightforward of when you can go. Okay, so save that thought and we'll come back to it. Reading the sky ahead constantly en route is important. Working the top 1/3 of the lift band, we've talked about these already. Speed changes, shifting gears based on future flight conditions. We're going to talk about that some more.
Yeah.
And follow Q and energy lines. G. Dale, who you may have watched his YouTube thermaling video a month or so ago, has a quote that is attributable to him: "Be a shark, not a dolphin." And what he is referring to there, if you've ever seen video of shark swimming, they kind of swim side to side as they S-turn through the water. And what he's referring to is between Q, don't necessarily fly just a straight line to that Q that you're attempting to reach, but look for any intermediate clues or hints that there may be better air to fly. So small course changes en route to that big mothership Q that you see is ideal to make some points up, so to speak, en route. Not a dolphin, he's just referring to large pitch changes, which I think everybody realizes would be energy depleting. So again, I think that's an interesting comment that he's got there. And we've already mentioned the last item, stop for only the strongest lift. Questions on this slide, guys? Somewhat of a review, but we're going to introduce a few things with this slide as well that we're going to talk about. All right. This harks back to the old days that we used to do this cross-country presentation at Hartley's place. It was very low tech, and I had nothing but paper slides, flip charts. So this incorporates several ideas, and I think that maybe a picture is worth more than PowerPoint bullets. But you note that we're basically trying to work the top third of this lift band. It's a 6,000 foot base day. So we're trying to work between 4,000 and 6,000 feet. I just don't want to get low. And if I get low at Cordele, I'm often disconnected from the clouds that I'm no longer getting any kind of cloud suck under them. So that helps. It's a little cooler. You're in the shade up there. Life is good. If you're down 2,000, 3,000 feet, you're in the sun, maybe disconnected from the lift, and life's a lot tougher down there. So what we've got here is not all Q and lift are created equal. So I'm definitely taking that 5-knot climb as shown. And you can see the sinking air between the Q. And then I'm skipping the next two, work 1, skip 2, but not just bombing through it. As Hartley said, I'll slow up a little bit. Okay, I'll slow up in that rising air. I'm not going to stop to turn because I know I'm feeding zeros into my ground speed. But I will slow up and then I'll push over, hopefully before I hit the sink, and then resume my cruise speed until it's time to do it again. Okay. And what I find is interesting is I've gotten into this rhythm on cross countries where I could work 1, skip 2 over and over and over. I'm going, this is crazy. Anybody agree with me? Joe, Mitch? I mean, it's cool. It's very fun. And you're staying in the top third of the lift band, and it's just a ball, just a ball.
Can I mention one thing that you just touched lightly on and went on, but it's very important for the new guys to realize we talk about thermals arising from the ground because the sun heats the ground. Yes, true. But what doesn't get talked about much is when you mention cloud suck, and that's an official meteorologic term. The rising air in a cumulus cloud will actually suck air up because of the difference between the dry and the wet adiabat and the lapse rate between the two. So a good cumulus will actually add power to that thermal in the upper part of the band. And that's why Scott's saying stay in that part. It's real. First time I heard about it, I said, oh, come on, who's kidding me? But it really is. The math works and the science works. And it's important. So stay up there.
Multiple advantages to that. Okay.
Hey, Scott,
Yeah.
is there some kind of distance associated with that pictorial there? Like how many miles across are we probably going there?
I don't have that, but I know that this ratio works pretty well in the top third of the lift band. I do know from my 500K, because I saved the stats, that my average glide between thermals was 6 miles.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yes, Hartley.
There is a ratio. It's related to the height the thermals rise at. The higher they go, the farther apart they are. Okay, it's about 2.5 to 3 miles, or 2.5 to 3 times the height of the thermal is the distance between the thermals on average. Okay, in theory. And we all know that in theory and practice should be the same, but in practice, it's not.
Yeah.
Let's keep it simple here, guys. I don't want to get too bogged down with numbers. But
it's not a hard and fast thing. I mean, if you're at 6,000 feet and there's a line of Q that between you and say your next cloud there, you might not lose any altitude. You might be able to go 5 miles without losing, 200-300 feet.
Yeah.
With this, it's not a linear thing that you measure in miles. It's experience, which is why we go to Cordele.
All righty. Questions on this slide? I'm just trying to impart a couple of points. The one major point is working this top third of the lift band, more aggressive cross-country pilots and racers may work the top half of the lift band, but I think the top third works for me. And the other concept that is just a rough rule of thumb, it's not hard and fast, guys. Work one, skip two, okay? But interrupt that rhythm if you find a particularly strong climb, and then reestablish the rhythm. That's all I'm trying to impart with this slide.
And those criteria change as you get lower. So let's say you go through your 2,000-foot band, you skip a few, and then you find yourself at 4. That criteria needs to change every time you get lower. So at 4,000 feet, you want to be a little bit more liberal with what you choose to take.
Absolutely.
Right? I think that's something that
and we'll talk about gear shifting here, because that leads right into gear shifting.
All right.
Okay? So yes, this works great if you're up high. If you're up high and the sky head looks awesome, that is the best case scenario. But you could end up with a lesser desirable situation, not necessarily bad. So flexibility is a key, and we're going to talk about that a little bit. Okay, and voila, here we go. Let's talk about this slide, guys. Gear shifting. It's for basically a standard class glider, such as Whiskey and Discus. Look on the left margin. You see height, high, medium, and low. That's your current height, okay? And you could equate those to the 6,000-foot lift bands we talked about. The first one, roughly 4 to 6, then 2 to 4, and then down low. All right. So that's your current height. And then across the top of this little spreadsheet or matrix are the conditions ahead. 2 cases, either they look good or maybe they're questionable. Okay. So let's take a couple of examples here. If you're up high and the conditions ahead look good, hammer down. Okay. 90 knots, give or take. We can quibble about how exact that is, but about 90 would work well. Okay. If you are high, but the conditions ahead are questionable, maybe it looks like a big blue area or storms or something, you might want to start slowing down already. Okay. Because now you're going to be burning less altitude if you slow down from 90 to say 70. If you're at the middle of your height band, this alludes to what kind of Joe's saying. As you get lower, basically you're going to get 1, slower, and 2, you're going to be less picky about what you climb in. Okay. So just basic rules of thumb. The lower you are, and down real low, you're just grateful for anything. You're just going to hang on and take it up. Hopefully it'll improve. But you see the trends here from the upper left, high and good ahead, to I'm low and it doesn't look good ahead at all. You can see what you're backing off the best glide speed, you know, best LRBD corrected for sync, etc. And yeah, to me, it's as simple as that. Okay, simple as that. Gear shifting. Questions on that, guys?
Scott, maybe you said it. Would you define that as the top third, medium, second third, low, first third?
Exactly.
Thanks.
Okay. Exactly. All right. Any other questions on this? Because I think it's an important slide. I don't want to rush through it. Hopefully I've added Joe's inputs. And yes, Hartley.
I would modify that just a little bit between high, medium, and low. It's not, I think it's partially relative, you know, top third, middle third, but it's also absolute. If you're in the top third of the band, but you're at 3,000 feet, you're not going to go bombing. Well, maybe if you're Ken Sorensen, you will, but yeah. Most of us will not be doing 90 knots. Okay, no, so it's a combination of the two.
Yeah, I can only put so much out here, guys, for silver distance, guys. So
right. Yeah,
you know, if it's a day with 3,000-foot bases, this all goes out the window. I'm assuming that we have here is a 5,000 or 6,000 AGL cloud-based Cordial day or a good Monroe day. Okay, so yes, use some judgment on what high is in terms of how fast you're going to go. But down there you'll get them. You'll get incredible days, you know, that are just, I can't believe I'm seeing this and I'm flying in it. So yeah, Good points. Good points. I'm just trying to keep it simple, guys. Keep it moving and keep it simple. All right. Now, I want to introduce another, I think, important concept to this for the beginners. And that's what I call the modular cross country. A long route is just a series of short connected segments. Okay. Sometimes people call it airport to airport. I think there's significant safety protections here and much reduced stress. Okay. It works for all experience levels. I think Mitch laying it out at Perry a few days ago on a very iffy day. And I'm guessing he was going airport to airport out there.
Absolutely.
What's that?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So it works for all experience levels. And with our modern nav displays, it can assist you greatly with symbology of what airports I can make, et cetera, et cetera. So let's dive deeper into this modular cross country and see what I'm really talking about. This is the Cordele task area in a nutshell. The Perry, Everett, Cordele, Ashburn, Tipton, Adel are all more or less down I-75. Off to the southwest, Sylvester, Oak Ridge, Spence, and Moultrie. Okay. Each one of those dots is an airport for this sake of this discussion. And each of those distances between dots is a module. Cordele to Ashburn, Ashburn to Tipton is a standard silver distance run down there from Cordele to Tipton. Okay. So we're going to blow this up and we're going to look at one of these modules and see what we can learn from this. All right. So let's look at a route segment. The distances vary, or a route segment or a module vary, but they're about 15 to 20 miles. Glide computers tell you when you can make the next airfield with your built-in safety margin. I think most guys will put a safety height of 1,000 feet over the destination airport in question, over the active waypoint. And the 30-to-1 rule is a manual backup that provides context. And I'll talk about 30-to-1 in a second here. Okay, so let's dive deeper into one segment of what I just showed you for the Cordele task area. So let's look at this. I've got two flat X's there. They're airfields at the bottom of the slide and at the top. 30-to-1 rule means basically 1,000-foot altitude loss in 5 miles. So here's an example. Okay, that destination airport is 1,000-foot MSL field elevation. I'd like to be basically 2,000 feet over the top of that for safe landing. I can fly any pattern to any runway. So 1,000-foot altitude loss, let's back that up. 5 miles prior, I want to be at 3,000 foot in 30-to-1 or better, of course. 10 miles, 4,000, 15 miles, 5,000. Okay. So if I'm 15 miles out, I'm 5,000 MSL, 30-to-1. And your discus is what, about 42-to-1 glide ratio? So that's fairly conservative if you're doing it whiskey. Then you should easily be able to make that destination airport. Does everybody agree with that? How this 30-to-1 rule applies? It's pretty simple math, and it's a good backup. And frankly, when I did my first state records and also 300K gold distance diamond gold, in my ASW19, I had no final glide computer whatsoever. I had a Garmin bracket mounted, and the 30-to-1, this was all sketched out literally on my sectional chart between airport modules of what I could make. And I thought, okay, so it worked well. One last thing on this slide, guys, in red there at the bottom, decision area. If you'll recall when I said, when you meet your go criteria, go. Well, this is it. Imagine you're in a glider right over that decision area, and you're at 6,000, 6,500 feet, 7,000 feet MSL. Can I make that airport at the top of this slide? Absolutely. You've met your go criteria. Go. Does that make sense? Everybody understand that one?
Yeah.
You've met your go criteria. And of course, with the nav gear we have today, it's ever more accurate and sophisticated, but you're above your final glide for that field. And you can just do this over and over and over down track, module by module, which we'll talk about here in a second. All right, let's get back in the books just for a second. Route planning. you want to know the SSA Silver Badge frequently asked questions. There's a ton of them in there, guys. So do please reference that before you come down there or before your first attempt at silver. Understand the Silver Badge inside and out. What you need is a 50-kilometer straight leg from the start of takeoff and from tow release. That sounds confusing as all get out, so I'll have a diagram to explain that. But basically, the third bullet, coordinate your release on the side opposite the airfield from your task direction. If you're doing it out of Monroe and you're going to go north to Winder in Jackson County, have the tow pilot, after you do your check-in on the runway, 23 Lima, take me south of Monroe. You want to release on the side opposite your task, okay? If you're going to go out of Cordele, it's just the opposite. You're going to go southbound probably to Ashburn and Tifton. You want to coordinate with the tow pilot. And it may not be 23 Lima down there, but they're all on the flap of the wing, the various Pawnee call signs. Take me north of Cordele, okay? Does that make sense? Because this is what you're, well, I'll get to that slide in a second. On this one, guys.
It does, and I'm looking right now for that video that I was given several years ago that defines that exactly what you're talking about, where to start and all that. I'll find that, and hopefully I'll be able to give that to these guys as training fodder. So
yeah, and I'll have a sketch of that in a minute that I think will clear that up very clearly, hopefully.
Yeah. I've also got a sectional of Cordele up so they can see the trip from Cordele to Tifton right now if you'd like to look at it.
Yeah. All right, route planning. Understand the 1% rule, guys, for silver distance. It's onerous. It's onerous, all right? On a 50-kilometer only one-way flight, it's impractical due to low max release altitude. You have to release really no higher than about 1,600 feet AGL if you're going to go 50 kilometers and land, okay? That's not stacking the deck if I am restricted to that low an altitude. You can imagine how far on a 5,000 or 6,000 foot cloud-based day, how far you are removed from the clouds. Incredibly so, okay? If, however, the third bullet, you plan to fly 50 kilometers out and 50 kilometers back, that's 100K total. Now you can go all the way up to 3,000 foot release, okay? The 1% rule no longer restricts you on your release height, all right? So to best assure flying the required 50K out for the return, you want to have a turn point that provides nav screen symbology on your nav display, usually in like a sector pi, okay? You want to fly through that turn point sector and then home. And I'll show you that in a second with the picture. We'll put this all together, hopefully, with this diagram, okay? So at the bottom of this diagram, this is a 50-kilometer segment. You have your start of takeoff, whether it's Monroe or Cordele, that dot there. You have the side opposite of your course where you're going to release, and you're going to coordinate with your tow pilot, 23 Lima, take me south of the field, please, okay? So you no longer have to worry about 50K from release. All you have to worry about is a 50K point from your takeoff, because you know where that is, okay? You know where that is on the field. 50-kilometer segment, up to the top of this diagram is your turn point. And if you have the capability to put a turn point pi or sector, it will show you that. As you fly through it, you should get some sort of beep, audio beep, and you can actually see you fly, as shown by the red dashed lines, flying through that turn point successfully. You don't want to shave it off too tight. You want to go into it a little bit so there's no doubt that you went into the turn point, but there's no need to fly deeply into that turn point. Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Good enough.
You may want to mention, Scott, the pi is a 45-degree angle centered on the course line.
Excellent.
Yes,
Yeah.
and the pies, the sides of the pie, the radii of the pie are infinite.
Okay.
So
Good point.
you don't need to worry about going too far. You just want to be
Yeah.
sure you went around
Yeah.
the point.
And if you're, excellent point, Hartley, thank you. And guys, if you're using something like an UDI, your own personal UDI, et cetera, you can shorten the ranges up so that you can basically zoom in on this pie and really examine it more closely. So you want to go into it. You don't want to nick it and not go into it, but you don't have to go into it for 5 miles or anything crazy like that. Okay.
And your UDI and other things like that, I believe, can be set up for auto zoom. So they zoom in as you get closer.
Yeah. Okay, good. Questions on this, guys? This is a very important slide in terms of your game plan for silver
Yeah.
distance.
One thing, don't cut it short. You know, probably driving there a good quarter, half a mile, just to be sure.
Yes, yes,
Oh,
exactly.
and one other thing, and I have not reviewed this rule lately, but if you use a start gate, the lengths of the start gate are not infinite.
Yeah.
And
that brings
so-
up a good point
yeah,
because my understanding is a start gate is not required for silver distance.
It is not.
okay.
Yeah, it is for 300 and 500, and I don't want to go into that now, but it's not required. If you release, guys, in that hashed release area there, side opposite your course, you can, you know, you won't be that far off of the straight black line here probably, and that's adequate. That's fine.
But we, you know, the software is good enough to identify when you're off the toe, but it would be a lot of wisdom in going ahead and what we used to call notching a bearcraft. You when you get off toe, make a really sharp turn to indicate that you're off toe.
Yes.
So you make a sharp circle when you get off toe. You turn right, you make sure, and don't come around and hit the toe plane, but you know, steepen up that bank and make sure that when you release, that the software knows when they release, and if the badge guy needs to look at it, he can look at it and see, oh, well, he's clearly off toe.
Yeah.
And that marks your altitude and your position.
Good point. There is no need to do an altitude losing notch like in the old barograph days, as
Right.
Joe mentioned, but a good tight turn off a toe is desired. And frankly, you would like to be releasing in lift, wouldn't you? So that would go hand in hand with wrapping it right up into a nice climb down in that release area there.
Exactly.
And of course, the standard courtesies, call sign off toe, et cetera, thinking your toe pilot, et cetera, et cetera. And guys, a lot of this you can practice on just local flights. You can do them here. If you're already getting to the point where you're getting comfortable with your own personal UDI or whatever you're using for your route, you can practice all this. You can say, okay, even on a day that, okay, I'm not really going to go up to Jackson County, but I'm going to practice the whole get-go declaration, have the Pawnee pilot take you to the side opposite and release, and then go out to the decision area just north of Monroe and say, could I make Winder? Could I make Jackson County, et cetera, et cetera? Okay.
Quick question. So if this is going for a silver, is that has to be declared and it has to be an exact location?
If you're using the 100K round trip, that needs a declaration with the turn point. So yes, you are going to do an electronic declaration.
I don't think that's necessary, but I will look it up.
Okay.
I
I
think
think
you
we
can-
was, go ahead.
I think you can get off your toe and then just head out. Once you get where you believe your turnaround point or where you want to land,
Mm,
that's your silver. I believe that's the case. I will find that and verify.
yeah, I
Dave.
think we worked on this a couple years ago, Joe, and decided that a turn point needs a declaration, and you need a turn point here to have your 50K level.
Yeah. You don't,
Okay,
you
well,
don't
let's
need a
table that.
declaration.
Yeah.
You don't need a
table it.
declaration if you go there and land.
Yes, if you land there, but
Yeah.
we're talking about coming back. And
But if you come back, you need it.
Okay, I will verify and report.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll come back to that. Does that answer your question, Terry, though?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, we'll find
I
out.
can't remember what your
We'll
question
find
was. All right, let's move on, guys. All right, I only have a couple more slides. I don't want this to be death by briefing, but let's just look at the Monroe Silver Distance one option, okay? That would be, and this is a busy slide, so we'll unpack this slowly, but let's say that our Monroe Silver Distance takes us north. We have two modules, Monroe to Winder, Winder to Jackson County, and then we've got that little turn point, Pi, a little bit beyond Jackson County. So let's look at these bullets below the airfields. The distance from Monroe to JCA, Jackson County, is only 28 statute miles. Aha. Okay, so we know we've got to go a little past Jackson County as shown with the red pi. Option A is your one-way, 50 kilometers, 32 statute miles one way. That onerous 1% max release height is only 1,700 feet. I don't want to do that. I do not want to do that. Option B is your round trip, 100K, 64 statute miles, ONR, which is out and return. Now I can go as high as 3,000. So I have a lot more luxury there, okay? So that's what we're doing on this flight. You're taking off out of Monroe. We already know that we're going to coordinate the release south of Monroe. We're going to get just north of Monroe in that decision area, and we'll look at 30 to 1. We'll look at our final glide computer, and we'll go, oh my goodness, I could easily make Winder. You've met your go criteria, okay? You get past Winder, you repeat that process. Oh my goodness, I could easily make Jackson County. You get up there, I say, well, can I tiptoe up to my turn point Pi and still make it back to Jackson County? You betcha. So I do that, and then I reverse the process. The next segment after that is Jackson County back to Winder. I'm gonna meet my go criteria. And how easy is that? You know, it's you're hardly breaking a sweat. So questions on the decision making there for the round trip. So that's why I don't ever call this task a 50K, you know, because I think that's a misnomer. I think what we're really signing up for in most cases is an out and return, 100K. All right, let's look at the pros and cons of doing it out of Monroe before we move on to Cordele. The Monroe advantages or pros. Heck, there's just more opportunities on the calendar in theory. You know, we're only down for badge camp for roughly a week. All right. So we have, in theory, a lot more cross-country opportunities just looking at the calendar to do it out of Monroe. And I think a lot of the mindset has shifted to doing it at Cordele, but don't pass up Monroe. You could have a great day. The other advantage of Monroe is your module distance from airport A to B is a little shorter on average, say, than Cordele, just a little shorter. So you don't have to be quite as high to bridge that gap. I think the cons or the disadvantages to Monroe is the weather generally isn't as strong as Cordele. And I'll talk that up a little bit more when I get to the Cordele slide next. And you're outlining true fields. If you're not going airport to airport, there are very, very few tilled farm fields up in the Piedmont. It's all either woods or developed and pastures that haven't seen a plow in 100 years. So the true outlanding fields, I think everyone would agree, are not as ideal as Cordele. Questions on this slide, guys?
Are there a lot of private grass strips out that way?
You know, there are, Joe, there are. And Google Earth is great to try to find these things. But I'll tell you what, there's nothing quite as camouflage as a grass field on a green background. They some of them I've never seen. I swear I've never seen them with certainty. Okay. And you don't know when they were mowed last. We'll talk about one case that's not really grass, but when I get back to, actually, I don't think I show it, but Everidge between Cordele and Perry is a paved strip, but it's good to look at that on Google Earth so you can find it, okay? But grass strips are, if you're comfortable with them and know them, sure, okay? All right, let's look at Cordele. That's what's coming up. So the Cordele Silver Distance task area is usually Cordele to Ashburn and then Tifton, okay? Option A is 42 miles one way. Okay, so we don't have to go past Tifton this time like we did going up to Jackson County, with the 1% rule, our max release height is 2,100 feet. So that's a little better, but that's still constraining, that's still constraining. If you do a round trip, obviously you're doubling the distance, 84 statute miles, and you can release again, of course, at 3,000. So you can see the effect of a one-way versus a round trip for both task areas, Monroe and Cordele. So let's talk about the pros of Cordele. I would have to start with, oh my goodness. When I say earlier and stronger lift, it is alien. You can have very high cloud base by 1 o'clock, and you might not have the equivalent cloud base at Monroe until 3 or 4. So it starts earlier and it's much stronger. On a good Cordele day, it'll be a kick in the pants like you haven't felt ever at Monroe. It's just solid. It's just a solid climb with you're getting the whole turn in it and you're just climbing like crazy. So you'll definitely experience the stronger lift down there. Okay. Anybody else want to chime in there? It's just, oh my goodness, good on a good Cordele day.
My height in thermal lift there is around 9,000 feet, so it happens.
Yeah, and of course, rate of climb is proportional to cloud base height generally. On a Q day, so they just go hand in hand. It's just crazy good.
Chip calls those unicorns.
Yeah, not guaranteed though. I must say they're not guaranteed, but you got to be down there, as Joe would like to say. You got to be ready to play. The other advantage to Cordele is past Macon, when you're driving down there for the first time, you'll swear you're in Kansas. It's just the land is different. It's hotter, it's lower, and it's flat. It's quite flat. You'll see a lot of very flat tilled farmland. Okay, and just better in all regards down there.
And the farm fields are bigger.
Yes.
Yeah,
A lot
huge.
bigger.
They're huge and flat and tilled. So,
Yep.
Yeah. The cons are twofold, and it's the flip side of what I just said. There's fewer opportunities. You're down there for a week and you're hoping for a good week of weather. Of course, the contest guys are down there longer, but for the badge camp guys, you're down there for fewer days. And the modules, the distance airport to airport that we've talked about, are a little bit bigger. For instance, if memory serves, from Cordele to Ashburn going south towards Tifton, that's a good 20 miles, I think. It's a little longer. Of course, you're up high, so hey, I can make that, no sweat, and you do. But just be advised that they're a little further apart for some.
Scott, I have the sectional up right now if you want to look at it.
Let me go ahead and run through this. I've only got one more slide, Joe, then you can pull it up. Okay. So questions on this one, guys, just a little bit of the silver distance game plan. So this is really my last slide. It's kind of a graduation exercise. It's busy. We'll unpack it here slowly. Let's fly is the title of it. At the bottom is Monroe, D73, then Winder and Jackson County. Notice in orange, guys, that I'm old school. I believe in the paper sectional along with my moving map display. And one thing I like to do on my paper sectional is highlight the CTAF frequencies for my older eyes, and no RPs or right patterns as appropriate. Okay, so if I do have to land out, if I get below my glide height and I can't climb back out, I know who I got to dial F to announce, and I know basically if I have any right-hand patterns based on what I expect the winds to be. So help yourself out. Hopefully you don't need that information, but it's just a little backup stuff there.
And also know you'll need both the jacks and the ATL sectionals.
Right. And before we started this tonight, somebody asked that, and I asked somebody to remind me. So thank you for reminding me.
There you go.
There you go. So yes, guys, you need two sectional charts. You need the bottom half of your Atlanta and the top half of your jack sectionals, and tape them together and cut them down or pull them down to a very manageable size in the cockpit. Okay. So that's that. What else can we look at? We've got, say, 15 knots of northwest wind, which might be typical. The Q may line up in streets or they may not. You're not really going into the wind that much here. I've tried to notionally put some cumulus clouds out there. Okay. I can't say they're to scale, but you get the idea. Okay. So we have the release area south of Monroe. We've already coordinated to be dropped off down there. Ideally, just like on a local flight, you would steer your tow pilot to a nice queue south of Monroe so that you can start right off on the right foot and climb right up nicely. And then I would transition across Monroe to that first red decision area. Okay, you're still local to Monroe. It's right behind you. And now you start looking at your glide information. You go, oh my goodness, I can easily make Winder. I can easily make Winder based on all the information I have. And guys, I will tell you that down at Cordele, you can get so high for these decision areas that you're not only making, say, Ashburn, I can already get to Tifton or almost to Tifton, and I've barely left the Cordele area. So you may get 2 airports down track if you get high enough. But we'll just take it more conservatively and say, okay, I can make Winder. So now it's just a matter of connecting the dots. You see the queue, you see where the winds are coming from. Do I want to chase downwind queue off to the east, to the right side of my track? No, not necessarily. Would I like to hedge towards the more westerly queue, but not deviate off of my course line too much? Yeah, 10, 20 degrees would be fine, working upwind, stopping only for the best climbs. Top 1/3 of the lift band, work 1, skip 2, but re-engage that as you hit a boomer. Gear shift is needed. You know, if you stay high the whole way, you could go all the way up there at 90 knots. It's just amazing. Okay. You get to Winder, you get north of Winder, and once again, you're back in that new decision area for the next module. Can I make Jackson County? Let's say no. I say, okay, so I just need to tank up a little in that decision area north of Winder until, okay, I could comfortably make it now. Boom, off you go to Jackson County, cloud to cloud. Be a shark, not a dolphin. So between these Q, the big mothership you're honing on, deviate a little bit left or right if you see wispies or anything like that. Okay. That's a weak area for me and always has been. I get so locked on that next big mothership down track that I'm sometimes not fully aware of the little wispies that may be helping me out if I deviate a little left or right or track. Does that make sense? Okay. So then I threw a little problem in this diagram. Okay, we know we got to go to this turn point just north of Jackson County to get that 50K straight line from Monroe. But look where I put that pesky turn point. It's in the blue, okay? And I just wanted to point this out because this invariably is going to be part of your cross-country experience if you do much of this. Will be turn points in the blue, okay? So now you got a couple of things to ponder here. You know the turn point's not going to shift, but maybe the clouds will. Maybe the cloud will blow over that turn point and you can start moving towards that big Q just to the left or west of that turn point, and let it match up under that turn point and then jump into that turn point and then jump back out and go back towards Jackson County. But just play this scenario as you get it, okay? Blue happens, blue holes happen, and I've tried to introduce that idea with this little final graduation exercise, okay? Does this slide, guys, make sense to everybody? Because this is truly almost your first cross country, guys. I wanted it to make it as realistic as I can. And you can see that my game plan is pretty simple. It's a pretty straightforward. I'm hopefully demystifying this, you know, where I'm going to release, where I make my go decisions, those red decision areas, you know, and the conservative approach that I use, the speeds to fly, the thermals to take, et cetera, et cetera. I really try to dumb it down for me, and I hopefully have done the same for the guys who are just contemplating this. But this hopefully gives you a mindset.
Now,
I just add one thing to the mindset here, just kind of a background. If you find it advantageous to deviate from the straight course, 9 times out of 10 deviate upwind,
Yes,
always. Okay.
exactly.
Unless there's some
Exactly.
clear good reason to deviate downwind,
Yeah,
always choose upwind.
yeah. Yes, excellent point. Terry, Thomas, Andy, anything here that baffles you or I've spoken too fast about?
Yeah, I do have a quick question about this for you. So looking, the decision area, you have that kind of just like, right after Winder as well. So, sometimes are you pushing that decision area a little bit, say further north, knowing that you can make it back to Winder versus, just kind of holding right at Winder until you make Jackson County, kind of looking backwards a little bit?
Yeah, an excellent question. And I want to try to keep this simple, but I will tell you this. On days with maybe the bases are a little bit lower than excellent, but still cross-country weather, imagine you're north of Winder. That decision area isn't a fixed point on the ground. It's flexible. And I have literally had this active waypoint behind me. And I'm tracking north. I'm north of Winder, but I'm looking back at Winder. Okay, I can still make it. I can do a 180 and retreat to Winder. And then I'll toggle forward to Jackson County. No, I can't quite make it yet. Okay, toggle back to Winder. Yep, I can make it. Keep pressing north a little bit and then jump and say, okay, I can make Jackson County now. That's
Okay.
a little lower basis, but does that answer your question?
It does. And I guess just for, just kind of house management when you're flying as well, like using, say, an UDI or C or something, just changing that active waypoint back from Winder to Jackson County back and forth, does that affect anything with the task at all, or is that you're good to
No.
go changing that?
No, it does not. And
Okay.
when I said earlier, this is an excellent question, Thomas. I'm glad you're asking it. When I mentioned many slides ago that one of the bread and butter modes on your particular nav display is you want to be able to toggle between active waypoints without trouble, without any effort or brain cells, because of this very scenario. I might still need to know I can retreat to Winder if I'm northbound out of Winder. On a booming day, on a cordial best case scenario, this won't come into play much.
Sure.
But it's just a skill to have. And I've had to do that, not a lot, but I've had to do it in the past.
Okay. I guess it's kind of a perk too, because like, looking in Whiskey, if you have your phone or an UDI, you have a second backup, navigational capabilities with the LNAV. So you can kind of use both to your advantage when you're flying.
Well, and you
Exactly.
can also revert back to the 30-to-1 rule that Scott
Sure.
brought up, 1,000 feet for 5 miles, and you can use that as your judgment to whether you keep going or not.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's just nice to have a separate method to know kind of a distance forward as well as a distance looking back. Just kind of have that in the back of your mind.
Exactly.
Before
I'd like
GPS.
to add one other point here. If you're setting up your own UDI or CU Navigator, all those, do not use the factory advertised L over D in there, because they're always a little bit optimistic. And the 42-to-1 in Whiskey is when Whiskey was brand new in the best factory tuned, flown by the best factory test pilot, and also theoretically calculated from the wind tunnel. So not 6 or 7% off the best L over D is what you put in your flight computer, and you'll be a lot closer to reality.
Hey, Thomas, using the LNAV for one anchor point and your UDI for the other is exactly what I do.
Okay.
They're two different systems.
In the
but
UDI, the airports you can make are green versus the one you're not.
Okay.
So,
I don't have. I've just been using CU, familiar with the UDIs yet, but okay, that's good to know. I'm not sure if it's the same with the CU.
I believe CU Navigator does the same thing. It'll highlight the makeable airports in green. I believe
Yeah.
it.
Isn't
Okay.
it the same operating system now as the UDI, the CU?
The new CU, I believe, is on Android.
And on Apple. I got mine on my Apple phone.
Oh, I'm
So-
talking about the UDI specifically. Yeah, CU's also available on both Android and
Yeah.
Apple.
So guys, one of the takeaways, this again is really my last main slide, and I call it my little graduation exercise because we try to really put everything together. So I don't want to leave anybody behind here. You know, I want to make sure, Andy, you got this straight. Andy Harriton, are you listening to this?
Yep.
You buy the nonsense I've been selling for the last hour?
I did actually. I was going to ask a question, switching gears to the silver duration instead of distance. I'll probably end up doing that even before I have my bronze. So two-part question. Let's assume whiskey. Number one, relief system. And number two, what would be a reasonable flight plan? Let's say you got 5,000 or 6,000 foot bases out of Monroe. What would be a reasonable plan, knowing you can go, a reasonable distance away, even up to Winder? What's a reasonable plan to keep yourself from just going insane for standing in the air for 5 hours?
Yeah, good question.
I think EFX is a better choice,
Yes, actually, it is.
That's sort of hand in hand with, I think, with Joe Lee's question earlier about how far can I go? It's the longest 5 hours of your life. But you bring up a good point that I'm not really going to answer your question, but I'm going to talk about your perception of time. Because if you were doing a 5 hour duration flight and you were truly flying locally, it, no joke, will be the longest 5 hours you've ever experienced in an aircraft. But if you are on, say, a 300 or 500K flight, it's amazing how your sensation of time changes. It's like, oh my gosh, it's already 2 or it's already 3. And
I'm already a half hour behind.
Yeah, and on a longer flight, I have pacing points where, if I'm doing it out of Cordele, I want to be down at Adel at, like I said, 1:30 or something. And I usually was 15 to 20 minutes late at every friggin' pacing point. And I think my 500K, I was behind, but I made it. So, yeah, I'm not really answering your question, Andy, but I would say that anytime you can work with your nav gear, do a practice. You don't have to literally go cross country to practice these decision areas. Coordinate. If you want to just see how your nav gear looks going up towards Winder, coordinate to have the tow pilot take you south of field for release under a good cue. Then go across the field at Monroe. You're not obligated to go in cross country, and I haven't coordinated anything with the ground team, et cetera. No problem. Go out there and look at those decision areas and see for yourself. Oh my goodness, he's right. I can easily make Winder. Okay.
Sure.
So, yeah.
I did some top of the head math, and it lined up with your 30 to 1 at 6,000 feet. You can go to Winder and back and be within gliding distance the entire time.
There you go.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And in fact, I did that. I think you were out at the field that day when I told you I was doing that, and you gave me your blessing. It was a neat flight. Getting to Winder, turning around and going, holy crap, I can see Monroe there. And I think I came back. My intent was to get back at 3,000 feet. I think I got back at 5,000 feet.
Right.
Mhm. Yeah.
It was just one of those days.
Yeah.
Okay, as far as, part of your question was relief systems. There's basically 3 approaches. Ziploc gallon Ziploc bags with absorbent diaper material in it. A little bit difficult to do with parachute and straps and everything, but you have to unzip and get things situated in order to do that. There's the condom catheter, the external catheter that kind of glues on, and then you hitch tubing up to it. Some people use a leg bag, some people use a Ziploc bag in a tube, some people port it off board. And then there's the male diaper approach that the lady competition pilots use, female diaper, and that works quite well. That's all I'm going to say about that.
And some astronauts use those too.
And yeah,
There you
so
Especially when driving down to Orlando.
Yeah.
so anyway, as far as going crazy, uh, as Scott pointed out, just make little goals. Say, okay, there's a field 3 miles over there in a cloud. I'm going to go over to it and see how I get. But mind games.
Yeah, you'll be surprised how much wild stuff you see at the fringe of that 15 miles or 10 miles that you might get away and still be well within gliding distance of the airport.
Mhm.
Lots of
And-
stuff to see.
And
Ordeal in particular, yeah.
what'll happen is that about 3.5 hours, you're going to say, I don't really care, but hang in. And by the time you get to 4.25 hours, you're starting to feel good. And by the time you hit 5, you're going to say, gee, I wish I could do a little more.
And you can.
You can.
Do make sure, guys, that for the 5-hour duration, we haven't talked about it much tonight, but you pad it a little bit. It's 5 hours after release for starters. And I would go at least 5:10, coordinate with the ground to make sure that you've got your 5 hours after release.
Yeah.
But that's that. If you were going to do them all in one flight, let's just talk about this for a second. I would say first and foremost, what I'm interested in doing on a silver distance weather day, I want to do silver distance. Okay. So I want to get going, complete the task, out and return, come back. And when you come back, by the way, just overfly the top of Monroe or Cordele. You don't have to go through a finish gate. Okay. The only little gate you went through was that turn point sector. So just overfly the airport on the way back. And now if that took you 2 hours, you've already coordinated on the ground to do the whole thing. Now you just need to hang out locally for another 3, just another 3.
Or go somewhere else.
And hopefully the math works for silver height as well, which is about 3,300 feet of free gain. Okay. So, and that's from your low point. So not necessarily from tow release. If you did get lower, then 33 from that would be your silver height.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
Can I steal your screen a second?
I just want to finish 2 more slides, Joe.
Oh,
if I
okay.
may. I'm almost that close to being done. Anything more that we want to talk about on this slide? Then I'll move on. All right, summary. This briefing, guys, was designed to provide a framework, a way to start organizing lots of random information. Again, lots of wonderful books out there, but when you close them, gosh, now what? And hopefully you've got that picture now. Okay, this is what basically it looks like. Hey, it's not that complex. You've hopefully demystified this as much as possible. Keep things as simple as possible. A well-executed plan, a simple plan, well executed. Okay. Starts with knowledge, your ship, nav gear, and the rules. Know your ship, know the nav gear, which we've talked about. Declaration through post-flight, and know the rules, the silver badge rules, 1% rules. Look at local flights as a trial runs up to including decision areas. We've talked about that. And finally, when the big day comes, go with confidence and go in all caps in those decision areas. I could easily make that next airport. Hasta la vista, I'm out of here. All right. So wrapping it up.
What's the Latin mean?
On his flagship, a famous early explorer, great things have small beginnings, Sir Francis Drake. And I think that applies to guys listening to this tonight.
Yep. Good.
Anything for me? I'm going to stop share. And Joe, it's all yours if you have something.
I have a quick question. Where can I find out what I can do for the bronze badge?
What?
To get my bronze badge before I go cross country, how do I get that started?
You need a bronze badge tracking sheet, Joe, and I will try to, all I got is hard copies. It may be on the website, but I can take a screenshot and just send it to you.
Okay.
Hopefully, I'll do that tomorrow, okay?
Okay. And what can I do down at Cordele towards that?
There's a lot. Well, you'll just have to look at it. There's a lot of elements. There's an X number of, and it's all done on the honor system. There's X number of flights and hours. I think most of them are desired to be single seat. You need 2 2-hour duration flights. If you already have those in your
I've
logbook,
got those.
you just check them off as you've done them, and you might see that there was all sorts of requirements, but I've got this much done and maybe only this much remaining, or maybe nothing.
I would suspect you probably have all your flying done, right?
What may be lacking, and I'm just saying this as a maybe, is you need 2 covered altimeter bronze short field landings with a SSA instructor,
I don't have that.
and you need 3 bronze short field landings with an altimeter solo. So there's 5 total. 2 covered with instructors, 3 uncovered, normal altimeter, no instructor. So there's 5 short field landings. So what are they trying to simulate in that? They're just one
Off landing.
Exactly. An off-field landing, you lose the altimeter with the standard sporty suction cup because you technically don't know the field elevation of where you're landing. Okay.
Using T-bar.
You know, in the Cordial task area, everything's about 300 feet. Monroe, it's about 1,000 roughly.
And for everybody's curiosity, on the SSA website, under badges and achievements, all of that is totally laid out in detail.
Yeah.
Okay, so I can find it on the SSA website and print it out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And get a hard copy of that bronze badge tracking sheet. It's actually, at least the ones I have, is A through bronze, but obviously you're not concerned about A through C now. But the bottom half of that is bronze, and you'll see there's a lot of elements to it. Okay. It takes some time to knock those out. But yes, Joe, do go through your logbook, and again, honor system. Oh, I've got this, I've got that. Just check them all off so that if you go to an SSA instructor at Cordial and Monroe and show them the hard copy at the field, okay, this is all I have left to do. You say, okay, you know, and if you need those covered altimeter landings, you need to schedule that in advance with the instructor. Okay. You know, just like any training, we don't want to just show up and ask for it. Okay. Schedule it in advance.
All right, well, I will start with the sheet then.
Yeah, and I'll get you a hard copy, but again, you might be able to print off a cleaner one from the website.
Okay.
So it's
Thank
all
you.
your,
There you go, right there. Is that it? Boom. You didn't even have to log in, and there it is, the study guide and quiz.
Okay,
Yeah.
there it is. And
Yeah.
Joe, when you're done showing what you want to show, I have a few closing points and then we're done.
Go ahead.
I think the only thing I didn't see there was the spot landings. I've got all the flying time and the time in single seaters. I got 15 hours in the standard Cirrus and
you
several.
look at it, the spot landing should be in there. There might have been more than one page, and Joe just pulled it up, but I don't want to get bogged down on that now.
Sure.
This is definitely something, and I will send you that, Joe, tomorrow. Okay, I'll send you a screenshot what it looks like.
All right.
Okay.
I'll fill it all out.
Yeah. I'm done. Anything else for me?
Joe, did you want to show anything else?
I had actually a couple more questions if you wanted to
Go ahead.
finish up first. No? Okay. First of all, I wanted to ask the guys who are going and like Eb, what do you look forward to getting out of this other than just hanging out and checking it out?
Well, I'm very green to this. I've got a lot of studying to do. I've got a lot of flying to do. So every day that I can be around, you guys, whether it's, just walking out in Monroe or Cordial or anything is going to help me. So
Absolutely. And what I'm going to do is, once you get those days over to me that you'll be there, I will work with Chip and George. George, would you be able to fly with him? He's relatively new. He is a transition, and he's just now starting out. But I thought it'd be good for him to come out to Cordial, and if we could even just do some pattern practice or what have you.
That'd be great. I'd love fun.
And then fly with him.
Mm-hmm. I'd like that. Do you hear me okay? Yep.
Sure. All right. We'll take a look at that. So we will. This will not be wasted time. You'll have a ball.
Yeah, I would love to fly with him if you guys hear me.
Okay. And Joe, and I mean, you seem hungry for your bronze there.
Yes, I was hoping to actually try cross country, but I didn't realize you have to have the bronze first.
Yeah. Well,
I've got all the flying time. I just need the spot landings from what I saw on that list.
right, right.
Okay.
If you
Joe, do you have 30 solo flights? That's the one
Oh
that's
yeah.
be up.
Yeah. I got way more than 30. I got 100 and something solo flights.
Oh, nice.
So
Hartley,
right,
did
so-
you have some final comments?
say again.
Joe, if you didn't have anything more, Hartley, do you have final comments?
Yeah, I have a final few, just a couple of slides to, kind of send it home.
Oh, go ahead and finish up then. I've got actually a bunch more stuff. Then I think I just need to take that. We're already at almost 2 hours, so I think we'll just I'll do something on my own with the guys to
Okay,
get
cool.
better.
I'm gonna bring this up to kind of wrap it up here.
I did have one quick question though.
Yeah,
Joe and I asked Joe about this before we could talk about it for a minute, but just in case still weather's not great in Cordele or something, or you finish up your silver flight and want to have something to kind of keep your brain occupied as well to finish up the duration, is there proving grounds course set up down in Cordele, or is that just what we have in Monroe currently?
it's not set up at Cordele.
Okay, I didn't know if we had kind of set routes or anything set up down there or not.
Well, let me explain some of the stuff that I've been looking at. Tom Smolder, who he just got back from Perry. I haven't heard back from him. He's the one that set up the cross country camps. If you look at the racing schedule this year with the SSA, he's got about 5 camps that are set up all over the country. He's not attending all of them, but he's attending several of them. And in his talk, he mentions us by name, and not by name, but by location, Cordele, and said, well, the local club there doesn't have the bandwidth to make it an open camp. And that is actually true, because I looked at the other camps. We now have 23 people going, and that's us. That's not including Tampa. So we're up over 30. Now, fortunately, we have 2 and maybe 3 tow planes. So I don't think that's going to be an issue. But what I wanted to do was make sure that we are within Tom Smolder's syllabus, for lack of a better word. His presentation was exceptional. I've got it. I've got some bullet points I was going to go over, but we don't have time now. I'll do it on my own. But one of the things he wanted to do was set up different types of mentorship. So in other words, there should be a mentorship for folks that are doing silver, and then folks who want longer tasks like state records or badges. So I'm looking at doing that sort of thing. And I forgot what the original point was that I interrupted you on. God damn it. Yeah, it'll come back to me.
Okay.
Go ahead. If I
All right, I'm gonna go ahead with this now. And okay, so just simple rules of flying from Ken Sorensen. He teaches lots of people cross country at Soaring Club of Houston. I'm just going to go through these real quick. Fly fast except when you shouldn't. The big sin that I see a lot of people doing is not flying too fast, but flying too slow. They're sleeping and the variometer's down at 4 and they're doing 50 knots. It's expensive of lift to fly slow and lift. So be aware of the speed you should be flying. Don't stop to thermal except when you should. stop in strong thermals. Scott has emphasized that, except when you must. If you're getting low, take what you got. If you get just below 2,000 feet, do not give up on it until you get a good bit higher. Stay high, fly straight, except when you must deviate. So it's easy to deviate way too much and fly way too long. So I suggest take a piece of cardboard box and cut out a triangle that's 15 degrees and sight down the straight edge and look to see how far 15 degrees off course is. It's not much. If you deviate much more than that, you're really costing yourself distance. Pete Alexander's rules. Don't give up too soon. Stay in the air as best you can. But Ken Sorensen's rule, burn this one into your brains. At 3,000 feet, you need to have some fields in range. Airport or a decent landing field. At 3,000 feet AGL, how far can you go? Maybe, certainly 10 miles. 10 miles is a long way. Learn at Monroe how far 10 miles away is. Look toward the north. And if you can spot Winder, it's 12 miles. It's a long ways. At 2,000 feet, you select a couple of fields. And at 1,000 feet, you are done. Okay, no low saves below 1,000 feet until you are very experienced and maybe even never. Okay. When you do get down to the point where you need the field selection, and it can happen, that's the other part we haven't mentioned. If you're going to fly cross country, you must accept the fact that sooner or later, you're going to have to visit Farmer Brown. Okay. So wind, wires, assume all field perimeters have wires. If you can't see, look for the poles. You won't see the wires. Slope. If you're looking down on the field, you cannot see the slope. If you can see the slope, it's really steep. You've got to have enough room to fly alongside the field you're going to land on and look at it from the side. And then finally, Sarah's rules. Sarah is, those of you who don't know, world champion twice. Be optimistic, never give up, and have fun. If it stops being fun, you're doing something wrong. That's all I have to say. Questions?
I remembered what I was going to talk about.
Okay.
Let me see. Where would I find my Zoom again? Hang on.
I'm going to stop this share.
Okay, thank you. Share. In the SSA's presentation on the cross-country camps by Tony Smolder, he brought up something that they were using. They're using, and this was what reminded me of Tom's question. Do you go by Tom or Thomas? Mabry.
Thomas.
Okay, Thomas. Anyway, here we are. And what they'll do, WeGlide, you're able to create a task in WeGlide, and other people can use that app and go on there and take that task as their own, and they can import it either into CU or whatever they're using for nav. And this would actually help create a proving grounds type environment at Cordeal if we wanted to do, say, create a small task for some of the shorter distance folks that folks want to just get introduced to a task in. That's one of the things Tom talked about, in his presentation, which is terrific, by the way. If you take, it's about a 40-minute presentation. It's well worth the time. I can resend it if anybody wants. But this was really terrific, and there's a lot of stuff that he introduced there. I'm trying to get hold of him to get the syllabus that he's using for the several. He's doing, I think there's 5 of these SSA cross country camps going on. Upper Midwest, West Texas. So, and he's going to several of them. But I hope that I can find out. I do have all of his slides in here that he used in the presentation. I'm trying to glean some of his lessons out of that. A lot of good stuff. Like I was mentioning before, the fact that he says that there are several different types of mentors. There's 7 diamond pilots going, and those folks want to fly, but they have goals. Chip probably wants to get his 500K, right? So, I mean, everybody has different goals, and there's, I think, different levels of mentorship that might need to go along with that. So that was part of it. There's too much to go into now. We're already at 2 hours. But I will put together a presentation for all that. I'll find out the silver badge stuff, and we'll get that all straight. A lot of this learning that we have to do is surrounding the technicalities of the rules. Not so much for you silver guys, but the diamonds and golds that are out there that want to expand or do a badge. There's lots of stuff that we have to refresh ourselves on, and we need time to recover that. We can do that here, and we can do some of that at Cordeal. That was it.
Okay, thanks, Joe. Okay, anybody else with comments? You want to stop your share, Joe?
There you go.
Hey, Joe, I sent you a text. This is getting me motivated to try to find some time to come down. So let's coordinate. I know I'm late to the game, so if it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
That's fine. If you can get in the weekend, there's not a lot of people there. And if I can talk you into bringing EFX down, that would be even better.
I don't currently have a trailer hitch on my car. I've got to look on my wife's and see if she has one.
You don't have your Jeep anymore?
No, I traded it for a Tesla.
Oh, we can put a hitch on that one.
Yeah, absolutely. Tesla should be able to pull a trailer.
Oh, we absolutely 100% can. It's $1,300 to do it, however.
Oh yeah, no, I am just teasing you. Yeah, that's not practical.
As soon as we're done with this call, I will look on my wife's and see if she has a trailer hitch.
Okay, if that's a possibility, then that'd be great. But if it's not like a deal ender. Just let us know. And I have not heard back from Murray yet. My last bet is on him to get that thing down there. So I'll work with you.
If I do come down, you said the weekend would be best. The start weekend or the end weekend?
There is no second weekend. There's only one weekend. Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
looking at my
there's only a few people using the club ships during the weekend. I think everybody's climbing in. I know Pat Jordan, who's on here, and he doesn't come in till Tuesday with Bill Drury, and Bill's flying club stuff. He's also might be able to tow for us. So there's a lot, and I could tie it down for another hour with the stuff that we've got going on for camp.
Okay, well,
right, we'll take that offline. But if I can make it work, plan on coming down the 23rd and fly 24th, 25th.
That'd be perfect.
Okay, let me see if I can make this work, and I will get back to you with that, and as well as if I can tow EFX down.
Thank you.
Okay, good. And we've got a club meeting next Tuesday by Zoom, so we can wrap things up a little more if we need to.
And a GTA the race this weekend.
Yeah. Okay, cool. All right.
Is there
I have one comment.
Harry, what was that?
I'd like to make. You mentioned about tacking on your 5 hour to your 50K flight. If you do want to tack your 5 hour onto the end of that, be aware, and maybe these are old rules, but I'm pretty sure that the rule is that for the 5 hour, you have to have an official observer, and your official observer has to start your time at the point of release, not the point of takeoff.
Right. And we'll talk about that with the official observer stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Is there a method of communicating with individuals other than using the group?
Yeah, I have a phone.
Yeah,
Honestly,
but I mean, like, is there a way to go in the groups and get individuals?
in groups, all of our emails are in the groups, I believe, and
Well, also.
on the
in
roster.
groups- Yeah,
It's on the roster.
exactly, exactly. Go to files from our group and it should be there.
Yeah,
Okay,
there's an
great.
email ID for everybody there, and I prefer a phone call.
Okay, and Joe, so I will be contacting you about Cordeal, and I do have a tow vehicle too. So
Oh, me love you long time.
Joe, I'm coming down to Cordeal, but I saw your message about helping with the de-rigging. I'm scheduled to work on the 18th at the airport, but
No, I get it.
I requested to be off. So if they grant my request to be off, I'll be out to help with the
That's fine. We'll make you slog the stuff around in Cordeal.
Okay.
Cool.
There will be plenty of opportunities. Very
All right,
productive, guys.
I expect to get that day off, so
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm gonna stop the recording.
yeah, I think we're all done.
thanks again.